Soundpeats. They're back, but this time they came with something a little bit different. Today we're talking about the Soundpeats Space. It's their over-ear Bluetooth wireless headphone. Not in-ear, over-ear. Let's get into it. First, please know, Soundpeats provided this to me for this review, but all thoughts and opinions are, of course, as always, going to be my own. Here they are, the Space. Soundpeats Space. Yes, believe it or not, they have an over-ear wireless headphone now. That's pretty cool. We've reviewed a couple of Soundpeats' stuff at this point, but the vast majority of it has always been kind of in-ear solutions, mostly Bluetooth wireless in-ear earbuds. But this is the first time we've reviewed one of their over-ear headphones. So that's in itself pretty cool. And here it is. So let's first talk about the build here, because the build is decent. It's okay. It is obviously mostly plastic, but that makes it for a very, very light headphone for sure. As you can see, they do fold flat here, so you actually have a good range of motion. You have some tilt, plenty of tilt, as well as 90 degrees of rotation. So plenty of swivel as well. It can't fold flat face up. It can only fold flat pad side down like that. But still, plenty of motion. You adjust from the headband here. Simple click, click, click. You can hear that. See if that's picking that up or not. It's a good satisfying click. And I actually like it quite a bit. It's pretty simple, elegant. It's not really going to be scuffing the metal here or anything. I'm not worried about it getting all gross after lots of use. It's a good solution for head adjustment. Good job. Continuing with the headband. The headband is first, this top section is wrapped in this very soft kind of fabric foam. The underside is just pretty typical, pretty standard comfort foam with a little bit of protein leather here to make it soft and plush. Plastic, plastic, plastic yokes, plastic cups, plastic everywhere. And the pads themselves are a soft kind of pleather with some memory foam, but it's, you know, pretty standard memory foam. Nothing that's super, super dense nor super, super memory foamy. Just basic kind of foams, but it does the job well enough. On the face here, as you can see, we do have the Soundpeats logo. It looks like a 5, I know, but it's an S for Soundpeats. And it's a little hard to tell from the camera here, I'm sure, but this is more of a kind of rose gold. It's not metallic and shiny like rose gold, but it is kind of a rose gold, almost pinkish gold color on the 5 here and on these microphones here. So it's a nice, simple, elegant color scheme. It does the job well. They do have a couple of different colors to choose from. I know that there was a white one along with this black version. There might be one other color. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, sure. Plenty of color options. But it is a very basic, but still, I would say, fairly stylish design. Also, they can fold inwards because portability. Wow, look at that go. Yeah, they do fold inwards, either side, whichever you prefer. If that helps you make things more portable, you have the option. Hooray. Going back to the headband, I do want to point out, I don't know if you can really tell this, but the headband is a little bit wonky. If I wear this over my head here, you'll probably be able to see it a little easier. But that headband, you notice how it, right here, it has this weird little lump. So when the headphone is being stretched out from your head, you get this weird kind of lump in the top of the headband. I'm not entirely sure what's happening up there. There's some sort of, you know, soft rubber or plastic or something. Maybe you have some metal components not quite lining up appropriately. But yeah, it does kind of cause this weird lumpiness in the top of the headband, which isn't a great look, but it doesn't affect the comfort or functionality of the headphone at least. So you have that. Let's move on to comfort. An extremely, extremely light headphone. I mean, it weighs pretty much nothing at all. So it's actually going to be fairly comfortable. I do have to, for me, at least when I'm wearing a hat of any kind, I do have to extend the height to the maximum for it to fit my head. But then once I get to that point, it fits fine. It fits quite good. It is a very, again, light headphone. I don't hardly feel any weight on me at all. And the pads are soft. They are a material that I would be concerned would become kind of flaky and disintegrate over not too much time. But right out of the box like this, they're fine. They feel nice. They feel good. They are a closed back dynamic driver headphone for Bluetooth and active noise cancellation. So right out of the gate, they do have pretty dang good noise isolation, passive noise and sound isolation, which they need to have to accomplish good quality ANC, which we will talk about a little bit later. The pads are unfortunately not very large. There's not a whole lot of ear room in here, a whole lot of ear volume. So what I do end up having to do to make these fit on me is I kind of have to scoop my ears in and into the side of the pad, which isn't ideal, but it works okay. So what I end up having to do is I really literally, see if I can show this off a little bit. I push the pad behind the ear, scoop the ear in the pad, and that's how the fit works for me. So your ear will be touching the inside of the pad. That's kind of unavoidable. I think even if you have small ears, this is something you're going to have to kind of just deal with. It is still an over-ear solution. I would not call this an on-ear, but they're just not very large pads, so you have to compensate a little bit with that scooping motion. But otherwise, it's fine. The clamp force is super manageable. It's hardly noticeable at all. It's only there enough because it's such a light headphone. There has to be some to keep it on your head. I'm not worried about it rattling and falling off my head at all, even as light as it is, because of the way that the clamp force is working, but also because of how my ears are kind of like getting wrapped around by the pad. So they hold on fine. Now, while the headband, the top of the headband is fairly soft and you do have that little bit of padding in there, I will say that over long sessions of listening, the very tip middle part of this headband does tend to fatigue just a tiny bit. I do get a little bit of a hot spot right smack dab at the very top of my head. It's a little bit better when I'm wearing the hat, but without the hat, yeah, I'd say over 30 minutes to an hour, it starts to get just a little bit fatiguing at the very, very tip top of the headband there. But overall, it's a very comfortable headphone. I've, worn this thing all day and it's done a very, very good job. The primary downside I would say when it comes to the fit and comfort of this is that these pads do get warm. Even now, having these on only for maybe 10-15 minutes, I'm already starting to get a little bit warm on the ear. So that's something you have to be prepared for as well. But otherwise, comfort-wise, very, very good. 7.5 clouds of comfort in our comfort cloud system. So good job, Soundpeats. Okay, let's take a look at the controls and how this thing operates. So let's look at the controls of the headset here. Most of the controls happen on the right channel, where you have your volume rocker for volume up and down. You have your power button, hold the power, power off, and you have your 3.5mm headphone jack if you want to plug this in wired into some sort of device. Over here on the other side, on the left channel, we have USB-C for charging and the ANC button, which will set your ANC to on, off, or passive mode. And that's really it. The only button you interact with on the left channel is the ANC, and then the only buttons you interact with on the right channel is your power and your volume rocker. So physically here on the build, there's not a whole lot of user control because most of that control actually happens within the app. So let's talk about the app. The app is the same app we've seen from Soundpeats before. Here's what that looks like. Here's a screenshot of it. And what's nice about this, again, it is the same app for apparently all Soundpeats hardware. So that makes things super convenient for me. All of my Soundpeats devices work from this same app using all the same features. So it's really great in that sense. On the front here, you obviously have your volume control for the headphone. We could also go into your typical EQ profiles. They're all the same profiles we've had before at Soundpeats, including the adaptive EQ, where it kind of tests your hearing. I'm putting it into quotations, test your hearing, and will provide you a customized EQ based on the results of that. Once again, I do feel that the adaptive EQ is the most ideal sound profile for me, but your mileage may vary. I will say that the multiple profiles, built-in profiles, most of them tend to affect the sound a bit too much, a bit too extreme, a little too aggressive. So I would say either stick with the stock classic house sound profile or go ahead and try the adaptive EQ. You also have your ANC control in the app. So while you do have your physical button on the headphone, you can also control it here in the app to turn it on, turn it off, or turn it into passive mode. There is also a game mode if you want to have low latency sound. From my experience, it works as described. I've noticed pretty much no latency when gaming with these. So if that's an option you need, it's there. Then you also have a dual connection toggle on here if you want to connect the headphone to multiple devices. Like many Bluetooth headphones, you can also use this to make calls. It's fine. It's still not the greatest quality. If you would like to hear what the microphone quality sounds like, here it is right here.
This is what the microphone sounds like out of the Soundpeats Space wireless headset.
So it's okay. It's fine. It's usable, but obviously not the best. When it comes to range and battery life, it does a great job. In fact, battery life is one of the things that I think they are advertising the hardest with this headphone. They advertise up to 123 hours of usable battery life out of this thing, and 60 hours of battery life while using the active noise cancellation on. Now, to be fair, in real world use case, I would say that the battery life is somewhere closer to about 45 hours of battery life with ANC on. And I haven't really tried prolonging that without ANC because I do think that ANC is the better sound with this. So take that with a grain of salt. It advertises a huge amount of battery life, but I'd say it's more like 60 to 80% of what they advertise. That being said, they charge super quickly. So even if your battery life is running a little low, I'm able to get a full charge out of this from it being stone cold dead in less than 30 minutes, something like 20-30 minutes. Okay, so sound quality. First of all, the ANC, the active noise cancellation on these, is actually pretty good. I didn't have anything to really complain about the ANC. It did a very good job of removing background noise, especially the lower frequencies, so low hums and rumbles like you would get on planes or in cars. Totally negate it. Some of the more higher frequencies, it does struggle a little bit to totally eliminate them, but even then, it does a pretty dang good job of making things nice and quiet and isolated. I would say it's actually better than any of the other ANC that they have on any of their in-ear earbuds. So it's really good. It's good. It's great. That being said, I will point out that with ANC on, with the active noise cancellation on, I do get a little tiny bit of a noise floor. It's barely noticeable, but it is there. You have just the slightest little buzzing at the very bottom of your listening, really buried down in there. But it's not by any means a completely black void of no sound when you have the ANC on. You do just have just the smallest bit of a noise floor. Plugging them in wired versus having them connected Bluetooth, I didn't notice really any significant difference in the sound performance. And because they are a Bluetooth headset and that's one of their biggest selling points, that's what I primarily listen to these through. So I don't think you necessarily are going to get any better performance running them wired. You might as well just use the Bluetooth. All right, so what is that sound signature like? How do they actually sound? They're very bass heavy. Soundpeats kind of does this sometimes. It just, I guess, their studio sound, their house sound, but they are a very bass heavy headphone, primarily your mid bass. And it's not the cleanest bass. It does tend to bleed and bloom, so you're going to be missing out on some detail in your mid range. It is impactful bass, and sure, it could be fun, but in terms of like clinical listening of music, you're going to probably be pretty disappointed because that bass definitely gets into areas that it shouldn't and muddies things up. And while that mid bass and bass range are very in your face, very forward and very present, you're not getting much in terms of sub bass performance. In fact, I would say that the sub bass performance is pretty poor. Your mid range is, again, unfortunately, pretty well veiled from that mid bass. So you are losing out on a fair bit of detail in that mid range. Your vocal range is unnaturally warm. It's a very deep valley V shape that you're getting out of the sound signature here. So that mid range is really pushed down in a way, and you're missing out on quite a lot of it, honestly. They're a very dark headphone. The high end is rolled off pretty quickly and pretty significantly, and you're missing out on pretty much any and all top end detail. Very poor treble detail out of these. Because it rolls off so quickly, you're just not hitting those higher frequencies. And you're missing out on that detail. So they're not a sparkly headphone. They're not any way a clinical headphone or an analytical headphone. They're very dark. You're primarily getting, again, your mid-range, but a mid-range that is swallowed up by a huge amount of mid-bass. Dynamics are also not great. They're not very well defined. And the soundstage is, it's okay. It's a little bit narrow, but it is a close back, so that's not to be too much of a surprise. I would say it's maybe about here-ish. You're getting just a little away from you, enough to give you just the slightest sense of air and distance, but again, it's fairly narrow, and the imaging is honestly pretty laxed. I don't really have a sense of where everything is. Everything feels like it's pretty much crammed directly in front of me, and I'm kind of sort of pinpointing sound here in a very narrow cone, but it's not a very immersive kind of imaging. It's not very super accurate kind of imaging. Certainly not something to give you good sense of instrument separation. So all that being said, it's clearly not a headphone I would recommend for like real clinical critical music listening. However, I will say that where they do excel is in just media consumption, watching shows, watching movies. Sitting here and watching YouTube with these is fine. It's enjoyable. It's pretty fun. That extra crazy amount of bass makes watching videos and shows a joy. They're a delight. So that's where I think they really shine. If you plan to just use this to watch movies and videos while you're on a plane, you're gonna have a great time. They do a great job at media consumption. It's really just the hypercritical music that they can't really deliver on. The price for these MSRP is $80. I think that's a little bit steep for what you're getting out of the performance of these. However, like many Soundpeats products, they are on sale quite frequently. In fact, right now I believe they're on sale for about $50, and that's more the range I would recommend for these headphones. $50 for a very long-lasting battery, for good range Bluetooth, and for very, very decent ANC. I think that's fine. Especially if you're just doing media consumption, I think it's a pretty good deal for that. And if you're interested, there are links in the description to the Amazon page where there's also coupons available right now, and I believe also a coupon code you can try out to get a discount. So overall, I think that the Space is it's a decent headphone, a decent Bluetooth wireless headphone. It excels with its ANC and it excels with having a fun and enjoyable media experience. It cannot really perform for music, but it does good enough for anything else. It is better than some other Bluetooth wireless headphones I have heard at this price range, but I would say there's also still room for improvement. So Soundpeats, if you want to give this a go again, once again, you need to improve your sound. You need to let those drivers have better detail, better performance. If you can get these to a passable level for music, I think that it'll be a much stronger recommendation for me, and people will be a lot happier. But again, media consumption, yeah, sure, they're great. That's about it. Thank you again, Soundpeats, for providing the space for this review. We appreciate you, and I will be seeing you all again sometime very soon.